Hey, and welcome. It is Monday night, and it's been a while since we've been together, but we are back. And of course, we're going to be back because we are coming off the 2022 NFL draft. Coach Kirk Broussard, myself, Tracy Lynn, we got Carlos, we got Hunter. We have a party tonight, and we are going to start off with, yes, what am I wearing? Hold on. What is that? What is that? Should I move my camera? I am representing because the first round, the number 5 pick, Kayvon Thibodeaux, is now a Giant. Can you guys believe that? How shocked were you? And when you heard that, you were like, "Oh, damn!"
I know you were paying attention to that.
Yes. So I am representing tonight, but we have a lot to get to in a short amount of time. Now we watched 3 days of the NFL draft. A lot of takeaways and a different kind of draft than what we are used to seeing. I want to pick your brain about this because it seems to be the number one thing that people are talking about. And they're saying that it's the smartest pick to the Steelers. Quarterback Kenny Pickett. They've watched him for 3 years. Are you guys surprised? Because if one of the things with watching the draft, quarterbacks, what's going on? Coach Kirk Broussard, I want to start with you. What were your thoughts when we talk about running backs, we talk about quarterbacks when it comes to the 2022 NFL draft?
Well, I mean, when you talk about running backs and quarterbacks, obviously this is a down year for the quarterbacks as far as I think I was impressed that teams this year, they didn't reach for a quarterback earlier than what they should have. And they've tended to do that in past years to where they have been so desperate to get a game changer at the most important position in sports that they have reached and drafted guys a lot higher than what they should have been drafted. So it seems like they've kind of learned from their mistakes and teams were more patient this year. I mean, you look at Kenny Pickett going there at 20th, to Pittsburgh, and it makes sense. He's a hometown guy. He's from, Pittsburgh, played in Pittsburgh for college. And so they can't say they hadn't had a chance to evaluate him. I mean, he's been right there in their backyard. So you would like to think the Steelers have always drafted well. They've been a team that have drafted, better than most teams. So you would like to think they made a good decision. I think he potentially is the most pro-ready quarterback that the draft had to offer, but is he going to be the guy that's going to change them generationally for the next upcoming years? That's still to be seen. But I can't blame him for making a pick and taking a chance on a guy at that position. I think they got pretty good value for that pick. I think I've heard they have a really good quarterback coach in Pittsburgh, so I think he'll be developed properly, and I think he has a chance to be an adequate starter in the league. So I think he's going to come in behind Trubisky and learn and be patient. And I don't think he's going to be rushed into the fire. So I like the pick there.
I mean, they've watched him on and off the field for the last, 3-4 years? 3 years.
Exactly.
So they really know him. Carlos, plus, when we talk about quarterbacks, not only are we talking about, I brought up Kenny Pickett, but Malik Willis. Some people shocked. I mean, gentlemen, you chime in at any time, but this was what people were talking about. I think this was one of the headlines. I think day 2, was it day 1? I can't remember. But yeah, he dropped. They were expecting him to go a lot higher than he did. What are your thoughts, Carlos?
I mean, I love to see it. Being here in Nashville, I've seen the carnage since the last playoff game the Titans played in, where Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. It's been a hate fest of sorts here in Nashville about a lot of fans wanting to get rid of him. He had a big game, definitely at the wrong time. But Malik Willis offers a chance of hope for a lot of Titans fans who wanted them to trade in the offseasons for one of these guys that were available. So looking at Malik Willis, you're seeing the comparisons of some of the former Steve McNair down here, things like that, which, fans are entitled to do. But I think that they got great value. Him being in the 3rd round, the 86th pick. You're talking about a guy that was projected, as the number 1 overall quarterback in this class, and the Titans got with great value. I do echo the sentiments of Kurt. Teams did not overreach for quarterbacks this year, which is something that we've seen as a trend. Years of C.J. Ponder, Christian Ponder, and E.J. Manuel, and guys that you can't even think of 4 and 5 years later. So I'm glad to see the teams recognize the value of what the quarterbacks were worth. And, being here in Nashville, again, seeing some promise in a guy that we were able to draft for down in Nashville instead of like going through free agency or trade for a guy that could eventually replace Ryan Tannehill. So I think it was a big gift for Tennessee.
Okay. Hunter, talk to me about quarterbacks for this draft. What were your thoughts on this?
As a Steelers fan, I honestly loved the Kenny Pickett pick. I was hoping that we would take Pickett, the hometown hero kind of guy from Pittsburgh. And a big part of that for me was the system that he was being drafted into. Kenny Pickett's he's a very talented pocket passer, which is something that I think Pittsburgh doesn't tend to shy away from, as we've seen, Ben Roethlisberger for however long. We've never really had a running quarterback. So when I was looking at, the Steelers having high interest in Malik Willis, even Desmond Ridder, I didn't really like the fit because I thought that we'd be going away from our scheme and Mike Tomlin's scheme and everything like that. But with Pickett, we're able to have that pocket passer and high IQ player, while also he's able to move a little more than Ben Roethlisberger at age 37 was able to. So I think that's a huge upgrade right off the bat. And learning behind a guy like Mitchell Trubisky, who just is coming off a season backing up Josh Allen, I think we really got a good one in Kenny Pickett.
Well, again, thank you, Hunter. Thank you, Carlos, for joining Coach Kirk Broussard and myself, Tracy Lynn, here tonight, talking about the 2022 NFL draft. I mean, it was a weird draft, too. Let's talk about Dolphin fans. They had 4 picks, and they waited until the 3rd round to make even one. There was different highlights for different teams. Coach Kirk Broussard, I want you to tell me about your highlight. I mean, would it be maybe the kicker that got drafted to the Bills? Was it James Cook?
Yeah, I think the Bills had one of the better drafts of all teams. But
yet
punter,
they ranked B, and we're going to get to rankings. So that's interesting that you said that.
The punter's, he's a perennial Pro Bowler. I mean, he's going to kick for them for the next 10 to 15 years, and he's going to be excellent. So he's going to give them an advantage in field position. I mean, I think the Bills upgraded all around because, when you look at their needs and what they were able to pick up, I mean, it was exceptional. They clearly have a plan. They clearly have new blood in the organization that's making the decisions. And, from the punter to Kyer Elam, the cornerback in the 1st round, and James Cook, they added some depth there at the running back position. They hit on all cylinders of things that they need. And they have one of the best defenses in the NFL. So to add a punter like this guy who's, he's exceptional, at field position, I think the Bills, they hit home runs on everything. And to kind of go back what you guys were talking about earlier with the quarterbacks, I feel like the Steelers picking up Pickett, I definitely agree with Hunter. It was a great system fit. But, and then when you touch on Malik Willis with Tennessee, I agree with you, Carlos. They definitely got great value at picking him in that position. But I just feel like the ceiling on him is Tyrod Taylor. When you watch his game and you watch similarities of who he reminds you of, I think the ceiling for him is Tyrod Taylor. But to get a guy like him in the 3rd round, he has a huge upside, but I just don't see the ceiling on him being extremely high, from what they need in Tennessee. And, I've never really been a fan of Ryan Tannehill, but, you got to take your hat off to him. I know he's had some times where he's made some bad decisions and thrown some picks, but I mean, ultimately, man, I think he's a great fit for that team. I think he's a field general, and you can't underestimate where he is with that. He is a field general. He does great things off the field in the community, as well as, I think he's good enough to win a Super Bowl with. But I just think they need to add, letting A.J. Brown go, that's kind of like why, but, I don't really understand that. But with a healthy Derrick Henry and a good defense, and you put a few weapons around him, I think he falls in that field general category. He's not really going to light it up. He can have games where he lights it up, but he's not going to consistently light it up. And but I think he's the guy there for the next few years, and I think Willis is going to be learning behind him on the bench for at least the next few years. Just to kind of put this out there, since we were talking about quarterbacks a little bit earlier, I think Ritter, the quarterback that went to Atlanta, I think he's my guy that's going to really shock. He's going to be the best quarterback selected in that draft.
Like Cal Chris.
I think when you go back and look at it in 3 to 4 years, Ritter's really going to make some noise.
Okay.
So
Carlos,
document this because I said that.
Well, we are recording this and we are posting this. So this will be online, which means nobody will unhear this. So, Carlos, I feel like you want to say something.
Please.
Your facial expressions have said it all in the last few minutes. So please, the floor is yours. Tell me your highlights. Tell me what you don't agree with what Coach Kirk Broussard is saying.
Yeah, let me start there, okay? Because Kirk just said a mouthful over here. He's claiming
did.
Desmond Ritter is going to be the best quarterback. Now remind y'all, Kirk also said that Kyle Trask was going to be the best quarterback out of the draft place that he came off. I forgot.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
You said he had the potential, or you said something to the aspect that he was probably going to be the best quarterback. You said something to that aspect. Now I remember that.
I said that he's deserving of being a first-round pick, but if you look at his career, right, he's been behind Tom Brady. What do you expect? Did you expect him to show you something? Did you expect Kyle Trask to show you something?
He would have went to a team that didn't have him in the first place. So that's all I'm saying. But okay, hold on.
Being behind Tom Brady, what have you expected?
We can't expect anything out of Tom Brady, but nobody knew Tom Brady. I'll give you that. Okay, but
I love it when you guys agree.
Well, that's a small agreement because let's go back to Malik Willis here and compare him to Tyrod Taylor. I'm not even a Malik Willis fan, but I think that's short-stopping the guy. I mean, he's got this rocket arm, the athleticism that he showed at the quarterback. Many people say that he's now the third best running quarterback instantly from the date that he's drafted. So he has that type of athleticism. Yeah, the guy would get a raw deal.
I feel like I need a whistle right now.
He played at Liberty. What do you expect this guy? He's not a post-style offense at Liberty. You got Hugh Freeze there. Of course, it's running gun. So the guy hasn't had a chance to develop. But if you put him in the right system, as you said, I think 2 to 3 years, that's a long time for guys to sit nowadays. This is the NFL nowadays. Most times you're going to get 1 year. And with the contract, did you see the numbers that Ryan Tannehill's making? They're not going to sit on this guy for long if he has another season like he did last year, which was okay. It was okay at best. So I just wanted – okay, and let me go back to my highlight of the draft here, okay, to stop everything here.
Yes, Carlos, please tell us what your highlight of the NFL 2022 NFL draft.
My highlight was Ed Mariano, the 42nd pick for the Minnesota Vikings. Did y'all see this guy get up here like your drunk uncle at your cookout, and he was just rambling for about 5 or 10 minutes to the point where the producer had to come out like, hey, okay, man, time to move it along. My guy went out there and just totally – did not care about your draft, about your team, anybody's team. He rambled for about 10 minutes. I think that's the highlight of the moment.
That is the highlight.
I love the drunk guy.
Okay.
Love him.
Perfect. Hunter, your highlight, 2022 NFL draft. Or do you want to comment on anything that the gentlemen have already said?
I'd love to, because I think this little debate between the quarterbacks is fantastic. I'll keep it going because here's what I thought about the Malik Willis pick with Tennessee. I'm looking at it thinking Derrick Henry just got injured for the first time in his career. Yeah. And what you're seeing in a run-heavy offense is that you cannot be completely reliant on a running back nowadays. You need that quarterback to bounce off of him as well. So I think this was a pick thinking Derrick Henry is going to be one of the best running backs in the league for a while. How can we keep him as a healthy, one of the best running backs? We're going to ease the pressure off of him by bringing Malik Willis in, who has that running potential. I know a lot of people have him compared to Jalen Hurts or Tyrod Taylor, like you said, Coach. So I think this was a pick to say, we're going to try and build this running offense. We're going to get rid of A.J. Brown. We're going to go into a Baltimore Ravens kind of system, and we're going to keep these young receivers coming in and out that can learn the system. But we want to keep Derrick Henry as our primary focus. And I think bringing in Malik Willis, that running quarterback, will help ease the pressure off of Henry a little bit when his time is up.
So you think So you think
Young
Willis is going to
blood
have a
here
package?
joining us tonight. Sorry, what was that, Coach Kirk Broussard? I
So,
interrupted you.
so you think Willis is going to have a package within the offense?
I think, I don't see it happening immediately. I think probably a year or two down the line when he becomes the starter, because I think Tannehill, we know what his ceiling is as a quarterback. We know that he could get you to possibly the first or second round. But I think the idea of having a running quarterback next to Derrick Henry can expand the offense a little bit more and possibly bring more success in the future.
Yeah.
I also do like the Desmond or the Desmond Ridder take. I think that is a good one. I think him learning behind Mariota for a year or two. I love Mariota as a quarterback. I think him learning behind him. They have Kyle Pitts and they have this young offense that they're going to build around. I think they're going to be a scary team in the future.
I think Ridder will be the starter by the end of the season.
Really?
I could see that too. I could see
I
that
don't
too.
think I don't think Mariota can last the entire season as a starter.
Yeah, I agree with that actually too. Because Mariota, remember, he's been in Nashville, and even when his time in Las Vegas, he's always just one play away. He's one of those guys that you know for a fact, he can go for 50 yards, but he could do his hamstring in the same place. So he's definitely in a situation where he's probably going to see early playing time. But I just think that I agree with you, and I think that they could start a package off early with Malik Willis. Let's go ahead and get that started. In today's NFL, I don't think you have to wait 1 or 2 years to see guys be able to produce on the field. I think you can go ahead and get that started, get the guys' feet wet to keep them interested and engaged. Go ahead and do that now. And I think eventually he will take the place, because one thing about the Titans is they don't pay their wide receivers, man. Let's be honest, man. They're not a team that values the wide receiver position to pay guys top flight. When is the last time you heard of the Titans having a top flight receiver that they pay top money for? It's just one of those positions they don't value. So trading A.J. Brown made sense because I understood the way that the philosophy and the culture is in that room. But at the same time, you're letting go a guy that has proven to you. I think it's a bad look from the Titans standpoint that he actually went through those trenches. He worked with you. He gave you good seasons, and you didn't pay the guy when it was time to pay him. So I hate that aspect of it, because players remember those type of things. They're going to think I work hard. They're just going to ship me off if I'm not in a position that they value.
Okay. Perfect. I love that we all have an opinion about this evening, because that is what we do. We agree, we disagree, and at the end of the day, we still love each other. So let's move along to grading each team, because this is an important thing. I mean, we watched this for 3 days. We were glued to our TV. We were glued to whichever social media platform, whichever way you were getting your highlights. Okay. In the research that I've done, they're saying that the Ravens get an A+. The Chiefs, the Jets, they're in about the A's. The worst marked team, the Bears. Giants get a B+. I had to throw that one in there, and you guys know that I was going to do that. And then the Bills getting a B. Let's talk Hunter, we'll start with you. Why don't you grade what your top teams are as far as the draft? I mean, like I said, we watched it, we sat there. We can debate this, but I want to know from everybody, what's your grade that you're giving all your top teams?
Yeah, I hate to say it because I'm a Steeler fan, but I really loved the Baltimore Ravens draft. I think outside of the Marquise Brown trade, I think that hurts Lamar Jackson a little bit, but at the same time, they're more of a run offense where I think that receiver spot is a little more expendable for them. And although I think that was more of a relationship kind of thing that hurts them, but Kyle Hamilton, the safety, I think he is a top 5 player in this draft. And I don't know how he fell all the way to 14. I think he's a fantastic player, and he's going to fit right in with that Baltimore kind of culture, that hard-hitting Ed Reed, Ray Lewis kind of culture. And then they got their center, because we saw they had a lot of offensive line issues in this season, and obviously had a lot of health issues. But I really like the center that they drafted as well. I think both of them were big additions. And I also, if we're going to go off teams, I really like the Jets as well. I know they were given that A as well, but I really, really like the Jets draft. I think Sauce Gardner, the corner out of Cincinnati, I really liked him at the 4th spot. I think he brings that swagger that New York needs under Robert Saleh. And then they got their receiver that they wanted in Garrett Wilson. And that's if they don't trade for Deebo Samuel in the next couple days. So we'll see what happens with that. But I really, really like the Jets draft. I think the Jets and the Ravens were 2 AFC teams that came out of here with a win.
Okay. Wow. Well, again, Hunter, Carlos, thank you for joining Coach Kirk Broussard and myself this evening as we just, we talk about the 2022 NFL draft. And it was a different kind of draft, but yet some would say it is like one of many years ago. expect the unexpected. Certain people, it's like anything. When we think they're going to go at this rank and then they come in at this time. Carlos, I'm going to pass it to you. Grade your teams if you have a top team and grade them as to how you thought that they were perceived by the end of the draft.
I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna go with a team that, as a Dallas Cowboys fan, lifelong here, I don't like to pick, but the Green Bay Packers, man. On defense, we know what these guys needed, man. They needed to get faster. They need to get some younger studs in that linebacker position. And you pick up Quay Walker. From Georgia. Georgia had a historic draft. You almost could drop the entire defense and make them a whole team in the NFL right now. But picking up him with Devontae Walker, that's two studs right then and there. Like, that's going to add instant, championship mentality to your team. Two guys defensively that could bring it. And we all know that they needed a wide receiver. So they trade up. As soon as they traded up, and I heard the ticker on ESPN, I knew what was going to happen. They went ahead and got them a receiver.
Yeah.
And they get the kid from North Dakota State, Christian Watson, who I think has the chance, man. I mean, he does put you in the mode of an old classic receiver from the Green Bay Packers standpoint. So you have to replace Devontae Adams. You go out there and get him. And they had some other great picks too. But I think those first three that those guys hit on, it just shows me this is one of the reasons why they don't have to do a lot of free agency. They really draft well. Most of their core players, you look at 75% of the players that Green Bay has is coming from the draft. And this is why. Because they make good, solid picks that fit what they're looking for. And they also, one more other guy, Zach Tom, I think it was out of Wake Forest, the guard that they picked as well.
Yeah.
Just picking up depth at all different levels. And I really like what they did as a team. Secondly, it's the Jets, man. I mean, what's they do? Everybody I'm looking at, when I saw the Jets, we've seen it. They've had top picks all the time and just blew them. So you knew that was due for a good draft. But to Hunter's point, you put together Sauce Gardner, you give me Garrett Wilson, you give me Jermaine Johnson, all in the first round. You end with Breece Hall. I mean, these guys really put together a nice draft that's really going to help Zach Wilson in the future. I mean, that was a luxury pick to get Jermaine Johnson, but why not go and get him if he's out there? So really like what the Jets did, and finally, long overdue. Good job, Jets. Thank y'all for actually doing something for once in a while.
You just got me all pumped up. Woo! You are like the best hype person ever. Now, Coach Kirk Broussard, the floor is yours.
Well, I'm not as good as Carlos, but I can rank my top three.
Yes.
From this year's draft. And I'm going to start from number 4. I'm going to rank my top 4. So my top 4, I would go Dallas would be in the 4 position. And I would say Dallas because I felt like they addressed their needs. I felt like picking up Tyler Smith from Tulsa in the first round. I think he's going to be a sleeper. I think he's going to be a mauler. Dallas's offensive line is kind of been dwindling, and they needed to kind of strengthen that, especially in the interior. Some of those guys are kind of getting old. They previously had probably the best O-line in football, and I think they addressed a lot of their needs in the later rounds as well. So I would go Dallas. My next team would probably be I probably would have to go with I like what Cleveland did. Cleveland, they didn't have a first-round pick. They didn't have a second-round pick. But for what they had, 3rd round to 7th round picks, I thought they addressed a lot of their needs. And I think the kid that they got in the 3rd round, Martin Emerson, is a sleeper in this year's draft. I think he's going to be a starter. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowler. And mark my words, give him 3 to 4 years out of his first contract, he'll be a guy getting that big contract. So I like what Cleveland did. My next 2 teams, I'm going to go this. My next team would probably be Buffalo. And the reason I say Buffalo is because, first of all, I know, people may look at drafting a punter, but I think this kid's a generational punter, his ability. And then I think getting Kyer Elam in the first round, I think he kind of fills a void of what they really need. That big corner that can shut down, that can be, that number 1 corner to take on number 1 receivers. I think picking up him was excellent in the first round. He tested well. He ran a 4.38, 4.39 at 6'2", long, physical. And then you got James Cook, who's going to add something to the running game. I think he's been in Georgia forever. He's seasoned. He's primed and ready to contribute. And then my next team would probably be, it's going to be a tie for first place.
Oh.
And my tie for first place for this draft would be Baltimore.
5 teams.
Baltimore and Green Bay. I think Baltimore and Green Bay are like A-plus drafts. And the reason I say Baltimore is I agree with Hunter. Kyle Hamilton is a lights-out, perennial Pro Bowler. Love him to death. They got to still picking him up at 14.
Yeah.
And then the center from Iowa is a perennial Pro Bowler. I mean, he's going to be the real deal on the next level. And then they kind of filled it out with quality picks, the rest of the way. So Baltimore, they always draft well. They've always drafted extremely well. And in Green Bay, I was super impressed. I mean, Green Bay hit it out the park with some of their picks. I mean, with this new regime in Green Bay, I think they're kind of following the trend. Green Bay has always been a team that's drafted Willis also. And I think they picked up Quay Walker from Georgia. They got 2 Georgia guys in the first round. And I think those guys are instant contributors. And it's defense. What did Green Bay need? They needed to bulk up the defense. I think they were, they got what? They picked up 3 receivers. I don't know much about the receivers, but I kind of do trust the front office there to be able to find those diamonds in the rough that are going to kind of be able to make up for some of that loss of losing Devontae Adams. And then I'm going to give one honorable mention.
Oh, you're being fancy tonight.
I got to give one honorable mention, and that's going to be Detroit. I think Detroit was able to come in and pick up arguably the 2 best players in the draft, with Hutchinson being their number 2 overall pick. And then you pick up Jameson Williams, who people were off of him because of his ACL. I think when he's healthy, he's absolutely the best receiver in the draft. And I think if he can stay healthy, he's a perennial Pro Bowler. And, even late rounds, they picked up James Houston, a middle linebacker who's going to make that roster. He's going to be an NFL player. So when you can get guys in those late rounds that are going to be contributors, I mean, that's the key to the draft, to be able to get late round guys that can potentially be key contributors or even NFL starters. Yeah. And so that's what I got.
And you know what? As we end season 2, we want to say thank you very much for everybody that has joined us over this season. And as we head into season 3, I'm going to start it the same way as I have the last 2 seasons. I'm going to bring up the Bills, and I'm going to keep saying this is going to be their year because we talked about their kicker and how James Cook is just like the icing on the cake when it comes to that team. Like, they were already a powerhouse, and then you add that. And of course, the Giants adding Kayvon Thibodeaux. Okay, we're going to have a year. We're going to have a season. Anyone have any lasting thoughts? Anyone want to say anything? Okay.
I would like to go around the table and get everyone's honest opinion about Kayvon Thibodeaux long term.
Okay, listen, we've done this before. We weren't sure when we watched him at the combine. We weren't sure.
Kirk and I are giving it up.
No, but we weren't sure.
I want to know Carlos's opinion, and I want to hear Hunter's opinion of Kayvon Thibodeaux long term.
The only reason he's doing this is because it's my team. But if it wasn't my team, he wouldn't be asking this. But that's okay. Coach Kirk Broussard.
No, because he's kind of a lightning rod guy in the media with a lot of cockiness. But I want to hear that.
100% agree with that. Okay.
I want to get multiple opinions about him.
Who would like to go first, gentlemen?
Let Hunter go. Hunter, you jump in there.
After him walking onto the stage with that entrance and the Make-A-Wish kid and everything like that, there is no way this man can have an unsuccessful career now. I mean, he's got to have a great career after that entrance. I think it was a perfect fit to New York. I think they could use that edge rusher as long as he stays healthy. I think that speed he brings off the line will be scary for those teams that they have to play against, like the Eagles, Commanders, and Cowboys. I think he'll bring problems as long as he can stay healthy. I really like the pick. I thought it was a good fit.
Yeah, like anyone who was drafted, as long as they can stay healthy, as long as they can stay focused and don't get themselves into trouble, they keep on the right track. Carlos.
Hey man, you can't get mad at a guy because he got the swag, man. He got the drip. He got everything that this new 2022 NIL deal infused college athlete is, man. He's that type of guy. Now, I'm not saying that means that he's gonna go out and set the league on fire. To your point, he's gotta back up all this style with some substance. We saw the tape though, Kirk. The guy has the speed. He has the dip that you look for. He's got it. But he's one of those guys that you got to wear when he gets the money, when the fame starts to come.
Right.
Is he gonna be a guy that's gonna fizzle out because that's all what he played for? New York, we think that's a perfect team for him, but maybe he was better off in a smaller place where he wouldn't have to be in the limelight of New York. But if there is a place for him that he's gonna want to be in, it's gonna be in that New York spotlight. All I'm gonna say is, I think he's got the talent. I hope that he has the substance to come back. If you're going to be doing all that on the stage, if you're going to be saying all this on your interviews, you got to be able to back it up. And I think.
Yeah. Okay, a little bit of a technical Carlos, I do agree with you 100%. If you're going to bring it this early in the game, meaning on your day that you get drafted, you better be able to back yourself up moving forward later on, because it's a typical story that we hear about, right? Coach Kirk Broussard, we see this. The player brings the swag. They bring the game. They are they're motivated. But then what happens? The lights, the fans, the money, something always gets them. And then they're yesterday's news. Coach Kirk Broussard, you tell me, what are your thoughts on Kayvon?
When you watch him on tape, he has all the ability in the world to be a superstar player in the National Football League.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's more to it than that. There's tons of players with great ability, but you have to have everything off the field as well. You have to be able to block out distractions and lock in the football, because everyone's good. Everyone's so talented.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be above everyone mentally as well as physically. And this kid, he's an intelligent kid. He has tons of options off the field, and he seems to embrace those distractions.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to be super interested in opportunities off the field. And I'm not knocking that, but the field has to come first, because if you don't dominate on the field, you don't get those opportunities off the field. And I've never seen that embracement of loving the field or loving becoming great on the field. I've never really got that from his interviews, from his performances. And that's a question mark, because many people have that question mark, as well as, his health, being able to get through an entire season and be healthy. Does he have the frame to hold up to a long NFL season? It's so many question marks, and you select him in that high position with so many question marks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not sold. And if I were the GM in that seat, that would make me a little bit hesitant. Am I rooting for him? Yeah, I would love to see him dominate, because we really haven't seen someone that, with the get off that he has, the strength and ability that he has. I think it's exceptional.
Yeah.
But he's going to have to block out everything off the field, lock into the field, and then all that other stuff off the field. You pay people to make those opportunities, and you never let those opportunities get in the way of the field.
Right. And I will just say, just for people that don't know, Coach Kirk Broussard and I have had multiple conversations over the last couple of years about players and what it takes to be successful, because it takes a whole team. It takes one player and the people that are behind them. And we've talked about the distractions and just everything that goes along with the fame, right? He's in the spotlight. So we do wish him all the best. We hope that he doesn't get distracted, because you need, like you said, Coach Kirk Broussard, you got to have the field. You got to have the game front and center every single time. The rest of the stuff is just there.
Let me say this,
Yeah.
Tracy. I think that we're going to see way more of this, because, again, you have a superstar athletes now in college. We're talking a guy that just got signed with the University of Tennessee. They're saying his NIL deal is $8 million over 2 or 3 years that they expect him to play. I hate it. I understand what 100% Kirk being a coach, he knows what guys need to look like to be able to be successful long term in the NFL. But I think the way that things are going with the NIL deal, these guys are going to be rich before they even hit the field. So things are not going to be like they were one day, where everybody, came onto the field and they understood their assignment and their position and all these different things. It's an unfortunate part of it, but if NIL is part of the process now, again, we're talking about guys with superstars before they even hit the field. So I think this is going to be normal process, unfortunately, going forward with the way that the NCAA and this NIL deal is set up.
I think at some point, NIL is going to have to be regulated. At this point, it's like the Wild Wild West. There's no regulation, and teams can. It's like everybody's going to the highest bidder, and you can leave at any time when you don't. If you don't feel like you got your NIL deal, you can just leave at any time. It can't continue like that. There has to be some type of regulation to say if you're going to transfer, it needs to be before this date, or else you got to sit out a year.
Yeah,
or there needs to be some type of regulation to say if you're going to, as far as NIL, this is the limit or this is the structure. It needs to have more structure. It just seems like it's wide open, and it's disappointing because I think it's ruining college football. I agree that the players should get paid, but everything needs structure. Even NFL paychecks have structure. So, as
unbelievable what these contracts are, and like you said, they're rich before they even hit the field.
And a guy made this comment, not to cut you off, Tracy. He said,
"No, I know, because you're the coach, so you understand it."
I thought this was hilarious. He said, "Everyone that came up on stage, I haven't seen not one player crying yet." Because in the NFL draft, when you get drafted, you go from being broke to being rich. So you're crying when you go on stage.
Right.
Everybody's getting NIL money. Nobody's crying.
Right. Wow. Okay, Hunter, do you have anything to say about any of this?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a college athlete myself. I know I'm not a part of the biggest sport in the world with rowing, but I see, NIL stuff all around me where it's even just like my buddies getting their energy drink. They just reach out to their energy drink, and next thing you know, they post an Instagram post and they get a box of these energy drinks just like that. And I keep thinking to myself, like, if I'm in a smaller sport in rowing, what is it like for these high end basketball and football players that are just able to sign this contract, get their stuff, and then next thing you know, they're like, I don't want to be a part of it anymore, and they transfer to this school, or they go here, they get out of the deal. And so it's just crazy to see how fast this NIL stuff has grown, and how big it can become if it doesn't get regulated, like Coach was saying.
Wow. Yeah. Again, it goes back to social media, followers, posts versus talent. I mean, we're not saying that these athletes aren't talented. They are talented, but they're being misguided. And that's the sad part, because when you see how talented someone is and you see how their career could have been, but they get sidetracked, it's not good. And I'm sure we'll be talking about this when we regroup for season 3. We are at the final few minutes of our podcast here. Anyone have any final thoughts? For everyone, gentlemen, because it's going to be a while.
I'm excited to see how these young men perform and train. I'm going to be watching OTAs and mini camp and to get reports to see how guys are performing. And it's going to be an exciting year in the National Football League.
And let's hope that it's positive stories and we're not reporting on anything that is negative, and it's only positive and good feel-good stories, and watching these athletes that have been drafted evolve into an amazing career. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Kurt Broussard, Carlos, we have Hunter. I want to say thank you so much on behalf of myself, Tracy Lynn. It has been an incredible season yet again. And I'm sure that between Coach Kirk and myself, he's had a few things right over the season, as I have as well. And I'm sure the two of you have chimed in and have been right along the way as well. So if you have any comments, or if you would like to, respond to something that one of the gentlemen have said throughout this 40 minutes, please comment, let us know. We will be back. And I hope you guys are all doing well.